Will a man called Jesus ever take me in his arms? That's the first line of a song that I used to sing back in my 20s when I was delivering pizzas in Olmsted Falls. Think about that for a minute. Your pizza delivery person could one day become your priest. I used to drive down the road in my Suzuki Sidekick. It was black, it was a Jeep wannabe. My hair blowing in the breeze, I loved it. And I remember singing the words of this song about Jesus taking me into his arms. And I had a moment where I thought it was a little confusing, not just because I'm gay and I was trying to imagine Jesus holding me, but because I never really thought about Jesus holding me at all. But the song was catchy, and it was about Jesus, so I'd sing it loudly. And then one day, I was reading today's gospel text, and I recognized those song lyrics in it. Or perhaps that the song lyrics came from that gospel text. So let's recall for a moment. Jesus has just caught his friends in a full-blown egocentric argument. They're all fantasizing about which one of them is the greatest. So to clear up this nonsensical conversation, Jesus takes a little child and puts it among them. And that's how the word is translated in today's gospel. The word child in Greek is a neuter pronoun, which means the child's gender neutral. So here's what the text says. Jesus took a little child and put it among them. And taking it in his arms, he said to them, "Whoever welcomes one such child in my name welcomes me. And whoever welcomes me welcomes not me, but the one who sent me." Will a man called Jesus ever take me in his arms? Turns out that song wasn't weird at all. And it didn't matter if I was gay or if I was a woman or if I was a man, male or female. The lyrics aren't about a romantic experience. And they're not about highlighting gender either. This story is about neutered love that's for everybody. And I recognize neutered is kind of a funny word. But what I mean by it is that this love of Jesus is a welcoming love. It's for all, no exclusions, no exceptions. It's not like any other kind of love that we've ever known as human beings. And I can tell you that the closest that I've come to understanding this love on a personal level is in my recovery work as an adult child of an alcoholic. As an adult child is someone who responds to stressful situations as an adult with self-doubt or self-blame or a sense of being wrong or inferior. And these are all attitudes that are learned reactions from an unhealthy family system. So when I hear the question, will a man called Jesus ever take me in his arms? I hear it as the question of an adult child. It helps me to name that sometimes I wonder if I will ever allow myself to really trust like a child again. To trust enough that I could fall into the arms of love. And I think that question matters to all of us, no matter what your family system was like. Because talking about an inner child is another way of talking about our true selves. Your inner child isn't just some innocent part of yourself, it is you. Your inner child holds within itself original trust, original belief, original love, all of the qualities God imbued within you at creation. And those are all the qualities we need to be in relationships as adults, too. Which means that when we neglect our inner child, we lose access to those qualities we need to thrive in our adult lives. Truth, trust, belief, love. And we can so easily neglect our inner child because it also has with it all of the mental, physical, historical memories of our childhood families. And sometimes there are parts of our childhood experiences we don't want to pay attention to. But Jesus tells us that the only way to be great, as the disciples so desperately want to be, is to welcome the child. But there are two ways to welcome a child. One is in childishness in ourselves, and one is in childlikeness. We get that childish version from the disciples in the gospel story, right? They want to know who's the greatest. And that word in Greek and in English also means big. So this is sort of how I imagine it in childish banter. I'm the biggest. No, I'm the biggest. Can you imagine? This is what's happening as Jesus is walking down the road. I'm the biggest. Jesus asks them, hey guys, what are you talking about? Even though he's already overheard them, which I imagine means that he's offering them this brief opportunity for self-awareness before he redirects their attention from this childishness to childlikeness. Just before he brings the child into the middle of the group, he changes the operative word in the sentence that the disciples have been using. They wanted to know who was the greatest, but he changes the word greatest to first. And I wonder if yet again he's nuancing this narrative we see all throughout the Gospels. Maybe he changes greatest to first because he's inviting his followers to return to that first part of the story. Maybe he's asking us all to go back to the beginning because only by welcoming that inner child back into our sense of selves can we ever welcome God. In this same story told in the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus' words are a little less gentle. Unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. That word change in Greek means turn around, change the direction you're headed in, and go back the way you came. His message in both gospel accounts seems to be that getting bigger isn't going to get you where you want to go. To move forward in life, you need to go back. Well, that sounds kind of silly, Adrienne. Going forward and going back are two different things, right? Well, you wouldn't be the first to think so. Like I said, this is a narrative we see all throughout the Gospels. And Nicodemus said something similar to Jesus in the Gospel of John. When Jesus told him if he wanted to get into heaven, he had to go back and be born again. Sound familiar? This message of going back to the beginning of our stories is all throughout the Gospels. If we want to find our way to God's kingdom, Jesus is pointing us in the direction we need to go. We won't gain the kingdom of God if we continue in the judgmental, defensive, competitive postures we find in the disciples' argument today. If we're trying to really connect to God, to other people, to ourselves, we have to stop believing we can do everything on our own and that we don't need others to help. We need to be like a child. We need to find safe places to become that child again and welcome those vulnerable and innocent postures of trust, belief, and love. This idea of going backwards to move forward is silly, but maybe not in the way we think. That word silly comes to English from German, and the word means innocent and blessed. And I think that's exactly the kind of silliness that Jesus wants us to feel at the thought of entering God's kingdom as a child. The innocent and blessed silliness of childhood, that's the entrance fee to eternal joy. See, ultimately, Jesus isn't asking any of us to return to the traumas of our childhood, though we may have to pass through them. what he's inviting you to enter are his loving arms. And within that embrace, to know what it feels like to be a child of God, especially for those of us where that feeling may be different than the one we felt from the embrace of our earthly families. So if it feels impossible to you to let a man called Jesus ever take you in his arms, because it feels impossible to let yourself feel that exposed again, I invite you to journey a bit with the author Frederick Buechner, if you've not read with him yet. One of his books, he writes about being at an adult child of alcoholics meeting because he's trying to understand how becoming a child again could even be possible. Jesus responds to Buechner and to Nicodemus and to his disciples and to you and me today by telling us that we have to become children again, but it's not something we have to figure out on our own. That's sort of the point of becoming children again. We don't have to figure it out on our own. It all starts with letting ourselves be picked up by the truly loving arms of God. The part of my own inner child work has been learning how to be a loving parent again. And I'm not talking about to my 3-year-old son. I'm talking about learning how to be a loving parent to myself. You see, often in my mind's eye in stressful situations, when those feelings of self-doubt come up, I often picture my adult self holding the hands of my inner child. And she's looking up at me with that fear or uncertainty, wondering, is it okay? And she's waiting patiently for me to tell her, it's okay, you can do it. Or, it's okay, you don't have to. Because sometimes I still need a safe adult to tell me what I'm feeling and thinking is okay. And sometimes that safe adult is me. See, Jesus isn't going to reach out and grab you and demand that you be a little child again, or his child. He won't even make you connect with your own inner child today. But he has opened his arms and stands ready to receive you. Will a man called Jesus ever take you in his arms?